Do you think awareness of mental health has changed over the past few years in the GCC?
It changed a lot, specifically after the pandemic. A lot of people understood why we would need mental health coaches or therapists or psychiatrists. It's very important to continue to spread awareness, because although some people are believers in mental health and awareness, when it comes to their close people, they're like, no, they're fine. They don't need it. It's a form of protectiveness. Don't expose your wounds to someone else. I'm here for you. It comes from love.
Absolutely.
But then a professional is able to do a better job than a parent sometimes.
Or a close friend. That element of separation can really be important.
Exactly. When you separate and break those boundaries, there's no formality. You're able to share the deepest, darkest things.
Yeah.
And then you'll understand that it's not that bad.
And it takes a lot of courage. And I understand why it can be quite scary, like you mentioned in the first half of the show. Hello, and welcome to Mindful Makers, a show that encourages us to look beyond the surface and explore the many modalities of self-care whilst enhancing the lives of others. I'm Sahar, your host for the show, and today I'm sat with someone who lives and breathes design. It comes so naturally to him that his expression and approach to design can make you feel instantly at ease, comforted, and inspired. His passion for interiors, architecture, and product design gained him global recognition from a very early stage in his career, with the likes of Architectural Digest, the Financial Times covering his work. In the last 5 years alone, he has completed over 60 projects ranging from residential interiors to healthcare designs, leaving an impactful imprint on the GCC design landscape. Now, it's easy to hear all these highlights and imagine that the road has been smooth, and we can be led to believe that success comes easily when you follow your heart and your passions. But in reality, the ingredients are unique to each Mindful Maker's journey. So without any spoiler alerts, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kuwaiti interior architect and designer, Meshary AlNassar. Meshary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, God, it's such a pleasure. We've spoken so long about having you here. But
Truly.
I'm so happy and thrilled that we finally made it. The stars aligned.
Honestly, so happy to be here. Really excited for this.
How are you today? You feeling good?
All good, all fantastic.
Nice. The last half of 2023 was quite jam-packed for you, wasn't it?
It really was, honestly. There was a lot going on.
You had a lot going on. You were busy with Dubai Design Week, and I know that you were looking forward, I know many people were looking forward to seeing you there. So was I personally. And you also welcomed a second office into your brand. And this time it's in Dubai, because your first one's in Kuwait, which was quite successful.
True. Thank you. Honestly, it's still surreal to me that this is still happening. We opened the studio 2 months ago, and it's always been something that's been in the works. But this year was the year that I wanted to make it happen. And we're here. It's crazy.
What does having this second studio in Dubai signify for you?
A lot of growth for sure. I think working on a second office, meaning kind of showcasing what I've learned throughout those 5 years that I've been in this industry. But also it's a kind of a personal challenge that I had with myself when I was a student in design school. At the very last year in my senior showcase, I won this award called the Bill Gates Award, which is most likely to open up an international agency within 5 years from graduation. So I've always had that goal with me.
Wow. And they weren't wrong.
Literally 5 years exactly in October, we opened the office.
That's amazing. It's almost like it was kind of manifested out there for you.
Kind of, yeah. It was always something that I wanted to do, but also I feel like Dubai is where I lived most of my 20s. This is where I've met most of the people that I know in the industry, where I kind of find myself. And I felt like moving back to Dubai again after 5 years being back home, what am I able to create that's different from the office in Kuwait? How can we tweak the designs we've been working on? What are the challenges that we can take on in such a big international market in Dubai? So it was a lot to take on board, but it was very exciting at the same time, honestly.
Challenging yourself in that way can push you to think outside the box and also look at how you can do things differently without copying, pasting stuff, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's not just challenging, it's very scary. And I feel like a lot of people and business owners and designers and architects don't talk about the very personal, scary parts of expanding and growing. Sometimes growing doesn't mean expanding, actually. If anything, when we grew out of Kuwait, we kind of downsized a bit for us to make this happen.
Right.
It was very difficult for me to just double all the responsibilities over 2 offices. But I feel like coming to Dubai, there was this scary feeling of what is this market gonna offer me? It's so different. You're dealing with a whole set of people from different cultures and backgrounds and nationalities, and it kind of opened up my mind even more to what are the possibilities that we're able to do here, honestly.
Looking at things from a new perspective and making sure that you're not stepping back into your comfort zone. I can imagine that would have been quite easy as well.
100%. And I feel like after 5 years, I've reached that comfort zone. And then I just felt like I need to be challenged. Like being back home in Kuwait, I love being there. It's home, you know, like that's where the family is. That's where everything is. But I wasn't challenged enough because there was a sense of comfort. A sense of comfort. It's a small village. You knew everyone. Home was there. Everything was there. I really wanted that challenge that makes me feel very uncomfortable. So I was kind of unhappy, honestly. So moving to Dubai was that, let's find that challenge. But it was a bit too challenging this summer. But it worked. It worked. Yeah.
I'm going to come to that actually, because that sounds very juicy, and I like the juicy details. So taking a step back from it all, I can see that design is very much your raison d'être. It oozes from you and it oozes from your being. What drew you towards this path?
See, when you say it like that, all I can imagine is like the younger version of me, like the kid in me that was just back home with my parents living in middle school. And I just always wanted to put people through experiences within a space. I always wanted to do something in a space and see how people will kind of adapt to what's going on in that room. So being a kid at home, my parents would come back from work and they'd see me rearrange the living room multiple times. One day the living room is here, the other day the TV is there. I just wanted to shift everything around until I find the right composition.
I can imagine that would have been very challenging.
And very frustrating for my parents.
Yeah.
And I just always wanted to kind of create like an ambiance, a theme, some sort of experience. Like even with dinner, like I wanted like roses here and I wanted the plates to be there. I don't know what it was from a young age that I wanted people to see what I'm able to do or make them feel within a space. And it became a thing. Meshary is the one that likes to move the furniture. Oh, things are not looking very glam. Let's call Meshary. He'll move things around. Or dig into the storages and get those old vases out or something.
That's so cute. I love that.
I don't know where that came from. But I remembered like a very distinct memory of me watching makeover shows. And I talked about this a lot. I remember there was a show, it's called Extreme Makeover, Home Edition.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that move, that bus?
Yeah.
I was obsessed with that show. It was Ty Pennington and a group of other designers. And I remember watching the impact of design on these people's lives, specifically people with difficult lives, people who have been through so much, and how design is able to kind of help them live an easier life from the moment they wake up until they go to bed. How can it impact their life? And I would watch all those episodes over and over up until one day I saw the title like Ty Pennington, interior designer. And I'm like, what's an interior designer? What does that mean?
What's that breed of person?
Right? I want to do what he's doing. And it was always that move, that bus part when the people are like, oh my God, you've, upgraded my life and you've, changed my house for me. And that's the reaction I always wanted to give people. It's like, wow, Meshary, like you knew what to do with my house. Like you've upgraded the way I live. And that was always the purpose, honestly.
Yeah, I get the sense that you could see the magic that an impact that a space would have on a person's well-being, on their life, and being part of that narrative through storytelling as well with your work.
Truly
gave you that sense of purpose.
Definitely. It's definitely storytelling, 100%. And I think growing up now, I understand that I was trying to say something as a kid. I think the kid in me was just like screaming to be heard and seen. I really wanted people to see me for who I am, not for any sort of stereotypes of, oh, boys should be doing this, they should be doing that, you should be sleeping at this hour, you should be doing at this hour. I just wanted to do something different, and I wanted to be seen for doing something different, and I loved it.
That you loved very deeply.
Exactly.
It's interesting because you talked about the show and that show being a big influence on you.
Yeah.
And I think about today and how everyone is so influenced by the gram and TikTok, and we're in this kind of arena at the moment where aesthetics and interiors and design also seems to be very geared towards what it looks like on social and what it looks like online.
True.
I know, having worked in worked in retail and worked with trend forecasters, you can see how quickly trends come and go, and you can see them coming and you can see them passing. You know the ones that are going to stick, and you know the ones that probably will be a fad. But when it comes to your view and approach to design and probably trends, what stance do you like to take, having been existing in both worlds, you know?
I think a lot of things that I've observed throughout my career and even before the career being a student, I've always resisted the trends, resisted a lot of different things that I've observed in the market. But now, after all these years, I realize there's no need for resistance. People have different tastes and they have different approaches to things, and that's fine. We all don't have to align in the same aesthetic. People can have different visions of what beautiful design is, and that's completely fine. And that allowed me to respect and appreciate my peers and colleagues in the industry who are doing very different aesthetics in design.
Right.
That doesn't make them bad or wrong. It's just they're excelling in a different genre, and that's fantastic to see. In terms of trends, and I will say this, and this might be very controversial, but I don't know why designers and architects are able to see the trends before they happen. I don't know what it is. For example, with me and my friends in the industry, we all see that this new material is going to be the new trendy thing.
Interesting.
And then we see it happening in the niche galleries and the collectible design, then slowly transitioning into the commercial stores, and then slowly to the lower mass production, and then it's everywhere. Remember when there was a trend of brushed brass?
Oh,
We'd
yeah.
see it everywhere, and the chrome legs.
Still see it around.
Everywhere. Now you see it everywhere, and now everyone is like, "Oh, I don't like it." It's because it's overexposed, it's not because it's ugly.
Yeah.
So I think overexposure allows us to get sick and bored of what we're seeing specifically on our screens, and you want to see something new. You want something that will go like, "Aha, this is interesting."
To make you think twice or make you look twice.
Exactly, because people are always looking for the newest thing to kind of flaunt in front of their socials.
How do you approach things when, for example, your client wants something that's, from a design and architecture perspective, so not going to work, and you know that they'll probably regret it after a couple of months? How do you navigate that?
I used to resist and just say no, but recently I'm open to more of a collaborative vision.
Okay.
I'll meet you halfway if you meet me halfway, you know? But also there are some big no-nos, because I always ask, why do you want this? Where's the influence? Was it family or friends, or is it something that's sentimental for you from your childhood that you want to make sure that you kind of bring back to life? I have a client that's building her house, and there's a lot of small ideas and components from her family home that she grew up in. She wants to kind of extract details from that house and plug it into her new house because she wants to feel that sentimental connection to home. And I understand that. And as soon as she told me that, I'm like, done.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's do it. But in terms of things that don't align with my vision, we always try to have a big conversation. And I always say, as designers and architects, specifically if you're like the main person, the senior designer speaking to the client directly, most of our job is sales. And no one mentions this. We do a lot of sales. We sit down and convince on why you should do this and where you should spend your money and where is it good for you. How is this good for you and how that is not.
A smarter way of doing things.
Exactly. Because I'm not trying to sell you furniture. I'm trying to sell you a lifestyle. And lifestyle is supposed to be good and healthy for you. I want you to spend your money on something that will age. It's an investment. If you spend all your budget on something that is trendy, it will go out of trend. You'll have to pay again. You'll lose more money.
I'm hearing that you managed to navigate this delicate balance between what is coming from the heart and what is coming from the head. Because when it comes from the heart and something needs to be there because it feels good and it creates a sensory experience that is genuine and timeless, then regardless of whether the aesthetic, fits in the brief or not, it will stick.
Definitely.
But if it's something that's informed from a space of, I guess, trend spotting or comparison, it's less likely to satisfy everybody in the long term. And that's when you step in and say no, right?
100%. I always say there's no right or wrong in design. It's what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of when it comes to starting point, when you're looking at designing residential spaces, is that your basic space of starting, always looking at what it will feel like and then working from there? Like, is that your process?
I think the process kind of depends on the client. We have a specific rigid process, but I shuffle the process according to some clients because some clients are very visual. They want to see the visual presentation. They want to see the renders first. And then they're like, okay, fine, you can detail it now. Some clients want to understand the zoning aspect of the house, the flow, and so on. And then we build up from there. Our process is always, let's study the space. Let's study your requirements. Let's understand your budget. Let's understand your investment. People who come to a designer and an architect, they're coming to invest. They're not just a client who's passing by. They're not buying a product. They're here to buy like something that will last years. So we follow a specific protocol, but I do understand that sentiment is a big thing. And I'm a huge sucker for sentiment. Like people who are emotional and want to express who they are and they have like attachments to specific things. I love that. It allows me to connect with the client. And I think that's when I shuffle my process.
Right.
To understand the priority. Like, tell me what is making you emotional. Tell me what's happening in there. Where do you want to go? What's the end vision? And then let's work backwards from there.
Got it.
This allows them to feel heard.
Yeah. And how would that work when you're looking at a commercial space? Would you reverse that and go completely like bang on process?
100%. See, I was known for residential for the longest time. It's until recently, the past 2 years, I've been doing commercial and retail.
Right.
It's so different. Residential takes more time, a lot of time, sometimes a couple of years, if not more. Because it's very personal, it's very tailored. It's a home for a family.
Yeah.
And they're spending a lot on it. And sometimes if there's no budget or if it's an open budget or so on, it's still difficult. Money cannot solve the problem of residential design. It simply cannot, because it's where you'll sleep and while you raise your kids. In commercial, they have rent, they have a grace period, they have salaries, they need to move in yesterday. So I kind of fell in love with the process. It's so fast, so easy. Everything is like ping pong, done, and then it's just construction. And it's so exciting, honestly. I'm falling in love with it.
How would you say you inject this feeling of, because your work is very sensory. When I visited your studio in City Walk, the new one, congratulations,
Thank
by the
you.
way. Yay.
Thanks.
Immediately I felt you and I felt what I can see and the other touch points that Meshary appears, whether it's online or in our discussions or meeting outside. It was consistent. So I can imagine when you look at a commercial space, you'd want to also make sure that that customer journey, that feeling, that brand essence is coming out. And if you've got a process, what would you prioritize in that? So to make sure that that's captured, because there's so many places that don't do that.
100%. I think my design, as one of my friends described, as domesticated. It's very intimate and cozy and welcoming. And that's always how I want people to feel, either in my house, which you've been, or at my studio. There's a sense of consistency. It's because there's no strategy, there's no plan. It's just I'm continuously expressing myself through objects and colors and textures and things that speak to me. Now, how can I inject the domesticness and the coziness into retail? It's very difficult because each retail space has their own branding strategies and guidelines.
Absolutely.
But what we focus on in retail to make it very kind of successful is circulation, flow, back of house, your guidelines, kind of human scale and proportion. If you open this cabinet, you don't want to hit your toe or like smack into the chair behind you. It's these calculations. That's why when a client says, I can do it on my own, I'm like, yes, of course. But there are calculations that will make your space succeed in an implied effect. You can't read why it's working, but you feel it.
Yes.
You feel the sense of space.
Absolutely.
And that's so important.
I was giggling earlier when I heard you talk about that, about, the way that space is calculated, because I used to, in a past life, work in retail. And for me, when we went on looking at our competitors or even just looking around in different stores, I was always looking at space and how it makes me feel when I enter. And my biggest pet peeve was, messy sequential links, bad sight lines, looking at how, the merchandising was messy, not just messy from customer use, but messy in terms of the way it was planned.
Displayed, yeah.
And it would just put me off immediately and I'd walk straight out.
100% customer experience.
And these are basic things.
100%. And these are the things that I can't seem to explain to certain clients that come in for a consultation and say, I want to do it alone. They like a challenge. They're here to get a consultation and then say, okay, thanks for that. I'm going to go do it on my own. I'm like, amazing. I love the energy, but you need to count that there are specific details. It's a full field. It's a full-on field.
Yeah.
My first ever project was a retail space for an Indian Kuwaiti fashion house. And it was my senior year in university. And I knew nothing about retail design. But we had this book in university called Newfort, and it's basically the Bible of design. It's every dimension, every inch of every function in this world. And I remember studying when you stand between two cabinetries in a passage, if you hold the knob with a certain angle of your elbow and swing the door, you have to take one step back. How much space do you need before you hit the back of the cabinet? But what if your colleague is behind you opening the other cabinet behind you?
Right.
You'll clash. And that's when I was like, oh, there's a lot to be counted in here. It changed my design completely.
Wow.
I tossed everything out and restarted again and again and again and again. And then I understood that these measurements, these inches, we notice them in the floor plan. The customer feels them.
Yes.
They don't see it, but they feel it.
Yeah.
When you're walking in a very narrow hallway, you feel uncomfortable. But in a very, very spacious one, you're like, this is still uncomfortable. It's too big. There's that right proportion gray area.
The sweet spot.
The sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's where design succeeds.
Absolutely. Because then you want to hang around, you want to explore, you want to make sure that, you share things, you become a little bit more open.
Yeah.
And even if there's an annoying sales assistant badgering you, it doesn't really annoy you as much. You stay and you chat to them.
You stick around. Definitely, design psychology is a huge thing. And that's something I've always, because I'm an observer, even as a kid, I was like, why do I feel uncomfortable in this room? Why do I hate principal's office? Just sitting there, it's very cold, it's very rigid, so it's like you kind of criticize and think of these things and want to understand why you feel that way.
Yeah.
And how can design improve it?
So we talked about the sort of commercial angle of things. And now I want to address something that I think, from my perspective, is a bit of a hybrid. I know that a few years ago, you designed collections for H&M Home.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to know, because that edit was featured heavily across the GCC in Egypt.
True.
And I remember it was everywhere.
True.
How did it differ for you looking at product design that was intended for personal space, but that would have to be communicated in a commercial space? Did you feel like it changed you at all going through that process?
Of course. You're tapping into a whole different audience. The audience that hires designers and architects is different than the audience that goes and shops at the mall for things to kind of curate a space that will speak to them without going into high end. It's such a different audience. And I feel like, being a lover of product design and design products myself, I always thought about product design as something very niche and very high end and very specific. With H&M Home, they designed their collections, and I was working on that edit with them. And I had to understand, why did their customers, the H&M Home customers, want to come and buy that vase? Why did they need that plate? What makes H&M Home think that this Kuwaiti or Saudi or whichever nationality lady, even in Egypt, why do they need that plate? Is it because it's pretty? She might have pretty stuff at home. What makes this different?
What's the need?
What's the need? And I think that's where the edit came in handy. It's Meshary, come and apply our products in a setting that makes people want to buy them. Mm-hmm. Makes people go like, oh, that's interesting how I put it together. I never knew. For example, for me, it's how I can multi-use a product. If I have a salad bowl for a salad, if I flip it, turn it into a stand and put a cheese board on it, I've elevated it, I've repurposed it.
Wow, lovely.
How can I allow the audience to see that?
Fun.
Exactly. It's fun, it's playful, it's relatable.
Yeah, and it also encourages different perspective.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I imagine less consumption because you can do more things with a few things.
Exactly. And I feel like, again, it's people who want to enjoy setting up their table and like their dinners and decorating their kitchen. You want to give them something that is able to transform and function and, again, not to overconsume.
I love that. When it comes to speaking about how you move through different worlds, I can see that, you know, the residential space, product design is really coming back into your kind of sphere when you talk about how you're managing the studio and the things that you're passionate about when it comes to materials, etc. What's your view on the online space? Because I remember the other day we had a chat about how a brand that's purely online would translate if it became a retail space. Like,
100%.
how do you feel about that transition? Do you think that one needs to be mutually exclusive, or do you think that they can transfer?
I think it depends on what the brand is trying to allow their audience to experience. We talked about this the other day at my place, and I told you that imagine this fashion online store, that online shop that has never had an actual physical store. If they had a real physical shop in a mall, how would you imagine it to look like? How would you imagine it to smell like, to feel like?
Yeah.
And it's very intriguing because now more and more we're seeing a lot of online platforms where you can just shop, but they don't have a physical space. And everyone is saying, oh, that's the new thing. I don't believe in that. I think a physical space now is a luxury. Physical space is financial commitment. It's workmanship. It's putting a team together that's able to serve you. It's a fully rounded experience. I remember specifically going to the Ralph Lauren home store abroad years ago. Walking in, I was trying to analyze what makes this brand, when you walk into the store, you want to buy everything. But when I go to the online shop, I look at the same products I saw, I'm like, I'm not vibing with this. It doesn't feel like it's worth it. I don't want it. But I feel like nowadays, as I mentioned, that it's a luxury. When you bring your brand into a physical space, you're allowing your buyer or your future potential buyer to experience scent and sight, and they hear specific music. It's very sensory. They see your product displayed in different ways, where you're able to feel like you want part of this lifestyle. It sells it even more. The online stores are convenient because you can shop from home, but then I personally don't think I would ever buy a sofa from an online store. I would buy a small stool. I wouldn't overspend on anything online because I don't know how the material is. And I've had a lot of pranks over buying things online that look amazing, and then they arrive and it's like the print of the wood is like printed on the plastic saying, this is wood. I'm like, no, this is plastic with a sticker on it.
Yeah.
So it might be deceiving, but that's my personal experience because I enjoy the sensory aspect of walking into a physical space.
Yeah, I'm definitely there with you. I feel like there are certain things that a sensory experience just makes complete. And without it, yes, I know that we're transitioning. We've got, Web3 and things are moving into the metaverse, but I think that there's definitely time and space for something that is more wholesome and connected and
not
sensory.
To say, yes, exactly. And not to say that online experiences are not worthy, because, for example, online portals or websites gave me the opportunity to shop with amazing designers in Copenhagen or in Finland, to buy beautiful little pieces and like little kind of trinkets that I enjoy having at my home as well.
Yeah.
So it does build a bridge, but I think it needs the right audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
To many, your path will have appeared seamless, and to an outsider, they'll probably think, wow, Meshary's kind of just killing it. He's now opened his second studio, and you established your business in 2018. Your first appearance in Dubai Design Week was 2019. And now 2023, 2024, second office in Dubai. And we've spoken about this a few times in our chats, this glorification to others, that success is all consumed through social media. It's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and also one of the reasons why I kickstarted this podcast, because I believe that it's important to show big pictures and full pictures and deep pictures. So has it really been seamless?
Not even close to being seamless. We talked about this, and it's such an important topic for me. I saw a lot of my favorite designers from across the world online, and I've seen how perfect their journey was, like from school to creating the office to building the team to everything they've created. And I've always wondered, what happens behind closed doors when they're at home, when they're not the designer that they are? Who are they without this kind of mask on? And I always said I'm going to be as transparent as I could with whatever I'm going to be in life. That's why I overshared about my personal life since I was a student in university. I wanted to overshare my struggles in my exams, my projects, my first design fair, my first job, my internship, everything. And I tried so hard. Up until a certain point, I just felt like maybe I should separate the professional from the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And I was showcasing what's happening in the business. But behind closed doors and away from social media, things were not very easy. It's every morning you wake up, you have to make a decision that today I'm going to be the best designer I can be. Every morning. Specifically when you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
If I was part of a big firm or an investor circle or endorsed by some sort of entity, I'd have that support.
That structure around you. Mm-hmm.
Some consultant, something. But I did everything alone. And I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of the student version of me that graduated and did that. But I feel like I always forget to show people how difficult it is to own a business, to be a designer in this region, to be a male designer in the region, to break away from the stereotypes and from all the assumptions. I think assumptions are the worst thing. People assume a lot of things. They assume he's doing things seamlessly. I'm sure it's that easy. It's not. I've done a lot of things, or a lot of things have happened in my life that I was shocked that this happened. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. I never knew that this would happen to me. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed, because that's when I learned that nothing is impossible.
Right.
And that's when someone comes to me and says, I wish I could do that, but you've done it. Like, you know, you could do it. I can't. No, I never believed I could do anything. I never believed I could design, or I could meet certain people, or create certain things, or travel certain places. So it gives you a sense of self-belief of what you're able to create and do in your life. But also, it's not as seamless and as polished. It's a difficult path. There's ups and downs. There's good days and bad days. There are some days where I told you I just wanted to just retire, switch it all off.
Because the pressure was a lot?
Pressure was a lot. Pressure was a lot because, I have an incredibly supportive family and amazing friends.
Which is very important.
So important.
Yeah.
More than I could have ever thought. Even when I thought it was important, it's even more important. But I think nothing comes easy. And I feel like whoever sees the glorified version needs to see the very rugged, messy, raw version as well, to understand that we're all working hard to make something happen.
Did you ever experience burnout?
Heavily.
And what were your alarm bells? How did you start to recognize that you were quote unquote burning out? Because I'm getting the sense underlying from what you're saying is that this is exactly what was happening behind the scenes that was really challenging you.
I didn't know what burnout was up until I was told that you're beyond burnt out.
Right.
I graduated 2018 from university. I was already delayed in my studies. 2018 in May, I graduated. By September, I had the studio. October, I had a full-fledged team. And it didn't stop. It went on and on and on. I never had a moment of switching my mind off of building this, off of upgrading it and getting clients and creating and designing and finding out the new material. This constant obsession of wanting to do led me to a point of, why am I even doing it? The symptoms were self-doubt, which is normal, I think, in any creative industry. Binge eating, severe stress, not sleeping, not wanting to go out and have fun with your friends because you're like, no, my time is precious. I need to be here. I need to do this.
I need to work.
I need to work.
I need to be busy.
Constantly. The constant need to wanting to be busy and glorifying the busyness. And then a complete crash in 2021, end of 2021. And that's when I made a big decision to make a big change.
Right.
Because the burnout not only affected me mentally, but physically. I became diabetic because of my eating habits. And that's when it was like a slap in the face. Like, you need to wake up and
look after yourself.
Look after yourself.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to prioritize myself, my health, mentally and physically, for the first time in forever. And I took a big, big step in changing things around that year.
It's almost like that was the catalyst to kind of wake you up to the importance of it, because without that, you could not continue to grow.
That's why whenever I tell anyone I'm diabetic, I'm like, I'm lucky I am. If it wasn't for that, I would have stopped and I would wonder what would happen to me by now.
Very interesting. It's like you treat it as your wake-up call and your blessing.
100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
So now we're on the other side of the proverbial fence, and you're awake and aware of what it means to look after yourself in order to continue doing your work, to enhance the lives of others and create spaces and products and things that make people happy. So how do you bring about this balance? Like, what are the tools in your metaphorical toolbox?
I think not only do I preach it to myself, but I also discuss this with my friends a lot, is finding that balance in between life and work, but also even at work, creating moments where you're able to surround yourself with moments that you're able to breathe, take it easy, look around. We're constantly hustling. Not everyone has the luxury of pausing and taking a break and going sitting for a coffee, but it's so important to have at least those 10 minutes of just taking a walk. And I told you about taking a walk. That's a big deal. Taking a walk have saved my life. I'm allowed to disconnect for 10 minutes, take a walk wherever I am.
Without your phone?
Without my phone. No phones, either alone or with my dog, and ideally with my dog. Just take a walk for 10 minutes, look around. We forget to look around.
Yeah.
Our phones have always been a big deal in terms of we're just glued to it. But now it became so normalized that just lifting up your neck and breathing properly and taking a walk and letting the sun hit your skin is becoming rare.
Yeah, I love going out for walks and leaving my phone behind, because you have to be present. There's no temptation to just check, or there's no distractions. You don't have it. It is you and nature or your environment.
Because a lot of us are on kind of autopilot. You want to do and do and do and create. You're on autopilot, and you need that moment to kind of take a step back and see, like, body check. Where am I now? How am I feeling?
Yeah.
What's going on in my mind? Do I feel any aches? Like, sometimes you even might have aches in your body and you wouldn't even...
And you're not aware.
You're not aware.
Because you're in your head the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that, and it's so crazy what your mind is able to do for you to feel like you're in, emergency mode. You have to function, you have to move autopilot.
That adrenaline.
Exactly, that dopamine rush. And I've learned so much about how my mind and body kind of react to those things.
Yeah.
And it poured into my work life, how I'm able to take it easy at work. And when I take it easy at work and I give myself the moment to breathe, I'm able to design better. I'm able to
Create
be more
better.
present.
So we've got walking, we've got looking at your lifestyle.
Yeah.
What else is in your toolbox that's helped you move away from burnout Meshary into mindful Meshary?
Surrounding myself with very supportive friends, shrinking down my circle. Therapy has been fantastic. In therapy, I was allowed to see what's in my mind, not from now, but since you were a kid. Therapy has been the best investment I've ever done.
Fantastic.
It really allowed me to see what therapy is and then have an open dialogue with my family and my friends about therapy and kind of break that stigma. Let's talk about therapy.
Do you think there is a stigma around it?
100%. No matter how aware and educated we are in the region, there's still a stigma, especially with family. They're like, but there's nothing wrong with you. Why do you need therapy? My therapist became my friend, and I still have my therapy sessions every week. And the discussions I have with my therapist are basically the thoughts that I think of throughout the week. All the thoughts that cross my mind, old incidents, people, I just jot it down. And then in my therapy session, I just kind of process it with her.
Yeah.
And to me, therapy feels like you have that big old cabinet. You know those big cabinets with the long files? It's like a very deep drawer with all these files. That's exactly how I see it. There's all these files. So each session, I take one file out and I process it and I toss it out.
Nice.
And then I reached a point, there were no more files to process. What's next? What's next is developing new habits, healthier habits, and better ways to surround yourself with the right things and the right people. Just overall being aware and present.
Amazing. I think it's really important. I mean, I can see that it's really helped you. It's brought you wonderful gifts. Therapy has brought you wonderful gifts in the way you move and the way you think about the world and the way you think about others. Do you think awareness of mental health has changed over the past few years in the GCC?
It changed a lot, specifically after the pandemic. A lot of people understood why we would need mental health coaches or therapists or psychiatrists. It's very, very important to continue to spread awareness, because although some people are believers in mental health and awareness, when it comes to their close people, they're like, no, they're fine. They don't need it. It's a form of protectiveness.
Yeah.
That don't expose your wounds to someone else. I'm here for you. It comes from love.
Absolutely.
But then a professional is able to do a better job than a parent sometimes or
a close friend. That element of separation can
exactly. When you separate and break those boundaries, there's no formality. You're able to share the deepest, darkest things.
Yeah.
And then you'll understand that it's not that bad.
And it takes a lot of courage. And I understand why it can be quite scary, like you mentioned, scary at the first, in the first half of the show. And when I did a bit of research around it as well, you're right, after the pandemic, mental health initiatives have increased in the region. There's a lot more awareness around it. And I think it was PwC that mentioned every year, 12 billion productive days are lost due to depression, anxiety, and it costs the global economy $1 trillion in lost productivity, which is insane.
Crazy.
And yet, only 2% of the global health budget is spent on mental health. So it's no wonder why these conversations need to be had even more, and it needs to be more prominent, not just within personal lives, but I think also at a corporate level and on company levels, because that's where people spend a lot of their time. True. And, you know, it's costing companies, it's costing businesses. So to have a business owner, especially in the creative industry, championing this, I think is fantastic. It's a very good way to show the benefits firsthand, but also encourage a sense of compassion and openness amongst community. Definitely.
And I really feel like a lot of the designers in the region are understanding more of that and how they can create a safer environment for their team as well.
Yeah. I love the fact that it's also, there's change happening at governmental levels. Like I know that Saudi introduced Your Mental Health Comes First initiative to raise awareness. There's been studies done by the Kuwaiti University to look at the stats of what's going on over there. And then in the UAE, they've introduced hotlines, and they've got part of the Dubai Health Authority. They're also including mental health care in their essential packages.
Yeah.
So I think we're moving towards the right direction.
Definitely the discussion is happening, which is super important. And I think the new generation is doing so much in terms of spreading the word.
Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah.
So looking at the year ahead, we're in 2024.
Yes.
How are you planning on serving your self-care needs and encouraging those around you to look after themselves? What are you, I'm not going to say resolutions, but more like intentions and hopes for putting it out there to look after Meshary and his community?
Honestly, I think communication. Communicating. I realized the other day that there's a couple of people that I haven't thought about in a while or reached out to them. So I automatically reached out saying, hey, I'm so sorry. I have not reached out to you. I didn't mean that. I hope you're doing well. It's just communicating, allowing the shyness and the barriers to be dissolved and allowing yourself to step in and just ask and check in and communicate and verbalize your emotions has been my biggest priority recently. And finding that balance. Whenever I feel like I'm in that hard ambition, that autopilot, I kind of slow myself down and try to take it easy.
That driver mode.
Exactly. And I remember specifically there was a moment when I would tell some of my close friends that my ambition will be the end of me, because I felt that my drive was so intense that I felt like something will happen to me. And now when I look back at it, I'm like, what a dark place. What a dark thought. And now I always check in with myself, check in with my friends. Honestly, just doing the things that bring me joy and activities and bonding with nature and surrounding myself with incredible people. It's just a great time, honestly.
Connection and communication are definitely the theme
100%.
here. I love it. So before we wrap up the show, I always like to ask these two questions. My first one would be, what's the ultimate song that captures your essence and your sensory delight at the moment?
It's a big one. I think there's a lot, but if I would kind of narrow it down to one song, it's by the iconic Algerian Arabic singer Warda. She has a song called Bashak, and I love that song so much because it has a lot of emotions and memories for the family and myself.
Oh, beautiful. I'm going to listen to it.
You have to.
And if you could take one item to the moon with you, what would it be and why?
It's so difficult to pick one item. There's so many things I want to take with me.
Especially for you.
Especially for me. All my nice
so
chairs.
So many beautiful things in your life.
So many items. And my dog and my family and everything else.
It's okay. You'll come back.
Yeah, definitely. I hope so. I think it would be like just a picture of my family. Definitely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
They'll walk around with you.
Yeah. I like to have like frames, pictures of people I love around me always.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing, Meshary. Oh, what a delight it's been having you on the show. Honestly, I think I can speak on behalf of the Mindful Maker community when I say that your honesty and desire to share and open up and really raise awareness around the importance of mental health and what it can do for everyone is truly admirable. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Mindfulness, I think mindfulness and self-care are really important conversations that we need to be having. And I'm thrilled that you're part of this on a global platform. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to you, wonderful, curious, open-minded fans of the show, thank you for being on this journey with us today and spending your precious time with us. I'm so grateful and sincerely hope that you take whatever serves you best from this show. If you'd like to connect to Meshary or check out his studio in City Walk Dubai, then be sure to head to the show notes for all the details. And if you fancy taking this journey further, then check us out on Instagram and remember to follow, subscribe, comment on the show, as it really helps to nourish the community, and I personally love hearing from you. Until next time, stay open, stay mindful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.